Hi there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Anita Adefuye. I'm a career coach, an author, a speaker, and I love sharing knowledge and helping people develop themselves and grow better each day, personally and professionally. Today, we have a video that's packed with tips and strategies that you'll need to ace interviews and land your dream job. Stay tuned and we'll be back. Okay, welcome back. So, I was going to do a series on different common interview questions and how to answer them. But then I thought I will be doing everyone a disservice if I don't, first of all, give you some general tips on how to ace your interview. And these are things that, before you get to the point where they start asking you those questions, there are some things that you need to know and apply to help position yourself for success. So, we're going to talk about some of those things, and I will be walking you through them very quickly. However, I might do this in a bit in segments, so we'll see how far we get today. So, for the first part, I want to talk about some things to consider before the interview. Before the interview, so this is I'm working on the premise that you have somehow landed yourself an interview. Good luck. I wish you all the best. And this is really to just get you to the point where you know things to do in preparations for the interview. So, number one thing you want to do is research the company. I know many of us apply for jobs because it looks right, it sounds right, and if they post their pay, maybe the pay looks good, but the title reflects the kinds of titles they were looking for, and so we just jump at them. But now you have their interview. Be sure to research the company. Couple of things to look for when you're researching the company is what is the strategic objective or goals. Oftentimes most companies would have this somewhere in their on their website, so figure out what that information is from their website, comb through and learn about them. Keyword about. So when you get into their website, look for the about section. Some companies post their strategic plans, and this is things that they hope to achieve over a period of time. Others might not, and they might just give you their business plan or operational plans, whatever plan name they give it. Just look for something that has the word plan, and or if you can't find anything that tells you where they're headed, look to their past. So the other thing you also want to do is look at their annual reports. If you can look through annual reports of a couple years just to kind of see some trends of things that have been happening in the organization, that would be very helpful. So you understand where they're coming from, and then you understand where they're going. Their annual plans tell you where they're coming from. Their business plans, operational plans, and or strategic plans tell you where they're headed. So you want to know what they are. Two, you want to research what their values are. Now, a couple things. This also helps you make sure that you're working for a company whose values are closely aligned to yours, and or at least do not conflict with your core values. So understand what their values are, because if you can speak to what their values are, it will really position you greatly. And then you also want to say what their mission statement is, their vision statement, know what it is. It will help you understand a lot more about the company. And then if they have products, well, most companies have products. Products can be in terms of physical, tangible goods, or it can be services, or a combination of both. Know what those products are, what they entail, what their target market is, things like that, who their target of market is, what is important to them. There are some companies who are more purpose driven than they are financial driven. You want to know what those differences are for each of them. And finally, their culture. You want to know what their culture is, so learn about it. Now, the best way to know about the culture of an organization typically is not what they say on their website that culture is. The best way to know is from people who work there. So if you can find a way to reach out to someone, people on LinkedIn or people from your circle that you know that might work there, and ask them questions about the culture of the organization to help you learn. So first thing is research the company, their mission, vision, values, products, culture, and look through their strategic plan and or operational plans. Number two thing you need to know is know your resume. Now, many of us put things in our resume and we don't even really know ourselves as we should. Quite frankly, you should know yourself enough to know what your key accomplishments are. I remember being in an interview once and they asked me a question, which was, what was your greatest accomplishment during the pandemic? I still can't stop smiling every time I think about that experience. It felt like my it felt like someone had just given me a blank check to shine, and God, I shone. Because it so happens that it was over the pandemic. I started YouTube, it was over the pandemic. I wrote my book, my first book. Well, technically, my second book, but yeah, my first published book, I would say. It was over the pandemic. I wrote that book, and then it was just coming out of the pandemic that I launched the book successfully. And so I really spoke to that, and I spoke to what that was about. So know your resume, but beyond even your resume, know other accomplishments that you have had. Because guess what? That I was an author, that I am an author is not on my resume. But when a question came up, it allowed me to, really dig into some of the key accomplishments in my life, and I was able to speak to that and speak from that. And that really went a long way. But to the degree that the job itself also requires, know what you have put down in your resume. Now, this is the danger of people having several resumes with several job titles, is that you get confused sometimes on which one did I apply with. So know the job you're applying to. I always recommend keep a copy, if it's a screenshot of the jobs that you've applied for and the position, because not every company will give you the job description at the point where they call you for an interview. So know your resume. And in knowing your resume, one thing to always put at the back of your mind, which technically is sort of number three, is always go with the star uh, mindset. Know the stars that you have. Now, what do I mean by that? STAR really is an acronym, but also sort of a metaphor. Acronym meaning situation, task, action, and results. These are especially for behavioral questions. Those questions where they say, tell us about a time, right? So you want to make sure that you know what are some situations you've been in, the tasks that were involved that you had to engage in, the actions that you took, and the results of the action that you took, and how that moved the dial on what the situation was. So know it's always go into your interviews with those at the back of your mind. Now, beyond even STAR being an acronym, there I talked about how it is a metaphor. This is where you really think through on all of your jobs that you've worked. What are three key accomplishments that you can think of and speak to? What are some lessons that you have? Things that when you look back, you wish you didn't do, or you see that there was an opportunity to have done better. And if you had the chance to go back, you would improve on. You want to know what those things are. It is very vital. And what that does is that it shows you, it makes it easier to find things to pull on to speak to when they ask you questions during the interview. That's number three. So, number four is then practice. Practice common interview questions. Don't forget using the STAR method. Now, I know oftentimes it's behavioral questions that start with tell us about a time, and people talk about STAR in terms of behavioral question. However, even for technical questions, I recommend that you, as much as possible, answer them with a behavioral sense. I'll give an example. So I'm in policy, or I have a background in history, experience in policy. If I were to show up to a policy interview and they ask me a question around a technical question, such as, you know, what are the stages in policy development? Of course, I'll tell you the theory of it, right? Which is maybe where the problem statements comes from, understanding the data that supports, or that, things that you can find in terms of data that speaks to what the policy issue is that we're trying to address, or the policy we're trying to develop, whatever that is. But when I'm done the theory, I'll say, and I'd like to explain this with an example of, something along the lines, and I'll give you an actual example. So I might say something along the lines of, I remember one time when, the government of Saskatchewan wanted to explore the economic viability of lithium, and I was tasked with doing the market research. This is a true story, and this is something I actually did. All right, I was tasked with doing a market research and potentially coming up with a taxation policy for lithium extraction in Saskatchewan. And I will go on to talk about the different steps that I took as succinct as possible, though, because you don't want to go on a narrative that people are put to sleep. So within your mind, and this is where the practice comes in, right? Within your mind, you want to ask yourself, what are the key information that I need to release to these people that tells the story of an example of how I will develop policies with an example of something that I have actually done. Does that make sense? All right, great. So practice those questions as much as possible in your own spare time, because hearing yourself repeat them also helps you keep it more here and increases your confidence, and you feel more one and in tune with what you're saying as well. So that's number four. Number five, have questions for them. Have a list of questions to ask the interviewer about their company, about themselves. One of the things that I recommend in asking questions is have a question for the role. So a question like, how will success be measured in this role? And or a question like, what are your immediate expectations within the first 90 days on this role? So a question about the role, ask questions around the team. What is the structure of the team? What is the reporting structure of the team? Will I be reporting to, who will I be reporting to potentially? Other people reporting to me? What would you say is the team dynamic, or how would you describe the team cohesion within this group or area? Things like that. Or what are some of the key contributions this team has brought to the company over the years? Of course, your questions to them must be relevant to the job, to the organization. So, for instance, if they already stated in the job or at some point in the interview that this role will not be supervising anybody, then it will be foolhardy to ask them questions like, how many people are you supervising? So, be guided. And then so that's that. And then you want to ask question regarding the individual you're going to work with. Now, this is very important because people love to talk about themselves, one, and then people love to be seen. So when you ask a question, especially if the hiring manager is in the room, the person whom you'll be working with, your supervisor, potential supervisor, is in the room, what that does is you have shone a light on that person and they feel seen by you. One. Two, you get to know a little bit about the person and you're really gauging them. I tell people that, look, unless you're desperately just in dire need of a job, interview really is an opportunity. You're not the one getting, you're not the only one getting interviewed. You're also interviewing the company to understand if this is a place I would like to work. Now, when you're really just, maybe say if you're new to Canada and you really just need something to get going, yeah, you probably don't have all of that luxury. You just need to get a foot in the door and then start to build your career. But if you're a little more set in you, and even in that, I don't believe that you have to take just anything and suffer through just because, right? You want to be happy going to work. So anyway, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. So know that. And that messes people's minds up whenever I tell them. But we'll come back to that at a different time. So have questions for them. And then um, and then ask questions around, the organization as well in general. Ask questions around the organization as well in general. So where the organization is headed, from the perspective of maybe the hiring manager, where they see the organization going, maybe in 5 years or in 10 years or whatever, or what the challenges have been and how maybe the role has, how they see the role helping close some of those challenges potentially. So always have questions, intelligent questions, questions that will get the interviewer feeling like they are the ones being interviewed, because guess what? They are also being interviewed by you. Now, other things you need to note would be things like your dressing. So pay attention to how you're dressing. Dress how you want to be dressed. If you want to be taken seriously, dress like a serious business-minded person. Other things to pay attention to would also be eye contact when you're talking to the interviewer or interviewers. Ensure that you're making eye contact every now and then, but not so much and so long that it comes off as weird or awkward. You don't want that. So find that sweet spot and balance between the length of time and how intense. If you're someone like me whose stare can be very intense, then you just want to maintain eye contact for like maybe 5 seconds and then move on. But make sure your eyes are not always looking down and they're wondering what's going on. That would only exude lack of confidence. Posture. Sit upright in a position that says that in Nigeria we would say that shows that you're approaching this with your full chest, meaning you're confident about it. So take a posture, don't slouch, don't be like, this, don't be too casual, and just a fine, nice posture. And then smile. Every now and then smile. If you're smiling all through, there's something wrong. That's awkward. But smile every now and then, just to and I would recommend that if you can, it's an art, but if you can, make sure that your eye, every time you make an eye contact, at that moment, you're also smiling. It has a way of keeping people warm. There's a whole psychology to this thing, people. And then when you're answering questions, so the next thing I'll ask you to focus on is that when you're answering questions, pay attention to the question. If you are unclear about a question, feel free to say, do you mind rephrasing that question for me? Or can I repeat the question back to you? I want to be sure that I have clarity on what the question is. Rephrase the question the way you think you're hearing it, and then throw it back up there, see what they tell you, and stick to the question. Oftentimes, when I'm working with clients and I'm working with them on interview coaching, and I say, okay, and we're doing mock interviews, it's a winding conversation. And it's like, okay, stop. I heard what I needed to hear 50 sentences ago. I'm exaggerating, of course, but you get the message. All right. And then, so pay attention to the question. When unclear, ask for clarity. And then remember that when you're doing the start question, I just want to emphasize this a little bit more. Be sure to highlight your achievements. Don't be shy about it. Now, I didn't just throw this in with the start question, right? Because I believe it deserved its own point. Don't be shy about stating your accomplishments. Let me talk to women, especially a little bit here. Women, when you're stating your accomplishments, don't be shy. If you did it, you did it. Don't try to give it to somebody else. Pull yourself in to the degree and capacity that you applied. Make sure you speak to that. If you support it, then you support it. If you led it, you led it. Don't be shy. Women, and I'm speaking to women more specifically now because women tend to be shy. Men would probably even exaggerate. Heck, they would even take the one that you led and did and say it was them. That's how men tend to behave sometimes. But women find it harder to own their accomplishments. So own your accomplishments 100%. Um, and then the other thing you also want to do is, as you're answering, remember to be concise. Be as concise as possible. Okay. And then finally, before you walk out of that interview room when the last question is out, I want you to leave a power closing statement. Think about lawyers in the court when there's a jury. What do? There's an opening and then there's a closing, right? The opening has to be is as important as the closing, and then everything in between really is just the butter. But you really want to make sure that you have a strong closing statement. So never just walk away when they're like, "Oh yeah, we're done." Don't just say, "Oh yeah, thank you," and walk away. No, say thank you so much. I really appreciate. Speak to one or two or three things in the interview that you really in insights you receive from the interview. Start with the question. And this is where asking the right questions come in. So you might say something along the lines of, for instance, I just want to express my sincere gratitude again for the opportunity to interview with you. In the course of our conversation, I've learned a little bit more about the organization, what they do. I've learned a bit more about the team, and I've also learned a little bit more about you. Thank you for sharing about yourself, about the team, and more about the organization. I really look forward to a positive outcome from this, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Now, one thing you also want to do is that you want to ask them, when can I expect to hear back? This is important so you don't wait and wait and wait and wait and you never hear back until you get that letter in your email that says, oh, sorry, no, you don't want that. Some I never even send that letter. And then when you're done, it's not over. When you get home, or maybe on your way home, still send a follow-up email to say thank you. Express your continued interest and gratitude, but even more importantly, if you feel like, oh, there was something I should have spoken to, but I didn't, it gives you an opportunity to add extra for yourself. So you can go something along the lines of, thank you for an opportunity to interview with you today. I really enjoyed learning more about the company and about XYZ, XYZ being something key about the company you learned in the course of the conversation. I have no doubt that my experience in, take one or two, maybe one of the experiences that you've spoken to into my experience as a policy analyst working in Government Saskatchewan, alongside all the other experiences, will really be a great fit for this organization. I look forward to applying my mention one or two key skills, and I believe that in time past, just as I have accomplished, state something you've accomplished, I believe I can replicate such accomplishments and even much more within the organization. Now, I keep saying the organization, but what you really want to put in place of the organization is really the company's name. Okay, if you have more than one interviewer, send an email to all of them to say thank you and express your gratitude. Now, I will stop there. But overall, remember this: stay calm, smile, be confident. Watch your posture, watch your body language. Stay informed, be aware of things that are ongoing within the organization and even around you. And remember to practice, practice, practice before you show up to an interview. If need be, work with a career coach like myself for interview coaching, and or work with someone. You can even bounce it off a friend to say, hey, listen to me and watch and provide feedback on what you hear me say. I really wish you all the best in your next interview, and I really hope for you that you ace that interview and these tips will help. So over the course of the next couple of days or weeks, I will start to speak to specific interview questions that might potentially come up. And so watch out for that and examples on how to say them so that you're able to really increase your confidence. I look forward to chatting with you. Take care and good luck.